Thank you, Mr. Dalmia. See, the way we're going to structure the discussion is I've found some 5 interesting quotes which is relevant for family businesses. And I'm going to put those 5, each of these quotes on screen, and then I'll possibly ask you a question around those quotes. Yeah? So can we see the first quote, please? Can you all see? Okay, the first one is succession is not an event, it's a strategy. So we've seen major family businesses restructuring ownership and leadership. From your own experience at Dalmia Group Holdings and your family, how did succession planning truly look like? How can the next-gen leaders prepare themselves to take a meaningful role than in just inheritance?
Before we come to succession, I just want to say that family businesses typically get underrated by society, and often by family business members themselves, okay, which is not the best thing in the world. Let me just give you a stat. Out of the Nifty 500 companies, almost 66% are founder-run. The remaining are either public sector or multinationals that are listed in India, or widely held companies like Larsen & Toubro or ICICI, something like that. And if the Nifty 500 is dominated by founder-run businesses, not all of them are second, third generation, some of them are first-generation founders, it shows the strength of family businesses. Therefore, members of family businesses should endeavor to work in their family businesses to the extent possible, because there's a lot of action, there's a lot of upside. The first point I would make, at least the way we've seen it, is getting into the family business is often considered the default. I call it the golden handcuff. My father has this business, I'll go into it. That need not be the case. That's probably the worst reason to get into your father's business. The preparatory steps for getting into the family business, I would say, the first question you need to answer, what are you after? Are you after the toys that a family business buys you, the good life, or are you after achievement? And there's a joke, the difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. So if you're looking for the toys, then probably you will not succeed that much in your family business. But if you're truly looking for achievement, that can be a great platform. Secondly, Bill Gates said that he wants to give his children enough so that they can do whatever they want, but not doing anything is not an option. So I think as parents, as older members of a family business, you need to inculcate that sense in your own children, that you can do whatever you want. You can come in the family business, you can diversify and do a new thing, you can do something totally outside, but you can't be a beach bum. I would strongly advocate, and I have 3 kids and all of them have done that, I would strongly advocate that young people in a family business should work outside the family business.
Outside?
Outside, for a few years. It helps you understand yourself. Going through just the interview process at Google or Goldman Sachs is very humbling. It teaches you a lot. And then if you work at Google or Goldman Sachs or wherever, you learn even more.
Did you work outside? Did you get interviewed?
Actually, I didn't, but my kids did. I'm the 3rd generation. When I entered, and someone asked which generation you are, and I said, I'm the 3rd generation. I have the privilege of screwing everything up. I'm trying very hard, so I didn't. Now, if you work outside, what you learn is a kind of work ethic in the early formative years that you don't learn, probably in your family business in early years. You'll develop a cognitive breadth that you don't develop within. And you learn team skills much faster when you're outside a family business and you're not the boss's son than when you do within. So for that reason, I would advocate that. Succession has its own collateral damage. We've seen that going on at Berkshire Hathaway right now. So we should not be afraid of challenges of succession. They're natural to succession. And when your kids come in, there'll be some stress, there'll be some succession challenges which you have to manage.
Okay. The next question is about, big round of applause, please. Thank you. It's amazing when you give something very intellectual and get an applause. But the next question is about reinvention, right? I think I can see a lot of next gen here. My friend Prashant runs his business diffusion engineer. Hi, Prashant. Then we've got Prithvi of Dixon who's here, next gen. And Pankaj just went out. I think a lot of next generation family members are here. So the question is on, are there pressure for reinvention or being innovative? Did you face it when you were taking over the business or adding value and so on? And how did you cope up with it? And is it okay? Do you want to pressurize? And the quote is, the legacy survives only when the next generation reinvents it.
No, I think reinvention is almost a necessity. So the mantra in multinationals, for example, is don't choose the CEO who looks like you. So if you are Nestle, you don't choose a CEO who looks like the current CEO.
Okay.
Now that's even more true in a family business. Don't pick a CEO who looks like the father. So you don't force your son to be like you in terms of work style or anything else.
Does that really happen? I mean,
yeah, that does happen. I think every generation, every individual brings his own individual personality. When you reinvent a business, you may reinvent it for growth, you may reinvent it for efficiency, you may reinvent it for diversification in many ways, in many subtle ways. I follow, or would advocate one should follow, there is a model called the Galbraith 5-star model, which basically says any business is 5 things. It's a strategy, it's an organization structure, it's got people, it's got a decision-making process, and it's got reward systems. And integrating all of these as symbols of the business. And they all work in sync. You can't change strategy alone. You can't just hire different people in middle management and expect the business will change. You have to change all the 5 forces of the 5-star model to change. Many newer generation people, when they try to transform the businesses, transform 1 or 2 things. They don't transform all the 5 things, which is why it takes longer than you think. So I would advocate that. McKinsey just finished 100 years. So there was an interview in the Harvard Business Review, which I was just actually reading yesterday, of the managing partner of McKinsey. And they asked him, how many people do you have? And how are you seeing flow of people? And he said, we have 40,000 people in McKinsey, and we have 20,000 AI agents who work for us. And 18 months ago, they had only 3,000 AI agents. And they predicted that 18 months from now, they'll probably have this 20,000 agents will double to 40,000 agents. So you've got to be able to harness technology that you're not used to say, I have an AI agent that I work with. Sounds almost bizarre, but that's one of the trends, the future of work. And we need to harness the future. Industries in India are consolidating. So you've got to be a consolidator rather than being a consolidatee. Now, I've seen many family businesses falter. So let's assume your industry is growing at 12%. Okay. And you will say, I'm growing at 12% or 11%, so I'm not losing market share, I'm doing fine. But if you see the dispersion, somebody's growing at 15, 17%, somebody's growing at 5%. Right? So if you're merely growing at average, I don't think it's good enough. So you've got to be able to grow faster than your industry and be a consolidator if you truly want to win the league tables. And many family businesses have not truly internalized that. So I would request future generations to really think about that. You know, a business needs refounding. So if you look at what is happening at Nike, sales were down 10%, profits were down almost 40%. And the new CEO is trying to bring new founding energy back into Nike. I was talking to Sunil Vachani yesterday, and I said, can I use your example? And he said, fine. So I don't know where Prithvi is. So if you look at Dixon, they used to have a brand called Western TV. In the 80s, we grew up seeing a Western television. By the 90s, that business had shut down, and they became a contract manufacturer. The company slowly got re-energized. In 2010, I think they raised private equity. So that's when it was truly re-energized. It listed, I think, in 2017, which came into the public domain. We all heard of Dixon. So there are examples of refounding. And I think future generations have to refound their family businesses.
Yeah, cool. I've got my friend Pankaj here, who runs M3M. I think he is sort of refounding his business by tying with international brands and launching branded projects. I mean, that's reinvention, is it, in your terms? Next, I want to speak about governance, right? That'll be more of private equity, the side of your life, right? How have you, what are your thoughts on strengthening governance in during a time in your family business? And also, as a PE investor now, where are you more comfortable, in a more professionally non-family run organization or a family run organization? If I have to just ask you that question plain and straight.
See, governance, if I think about it, is mostly a hygiene factor. Okay. That bad governance is a problem. Good governance is almost expected. It's nothing great. You have to do it just to survive. So you have to do governance to remove all the hygiene factors. The upside of governance is you don't struggle at times with silly issues that may hit you if you have good governance. If you don't have good governance, you get distracted every once in a while when there is a problem. Now, something better than governance, I think, which companies should endeavor for, is culture. A strong culture almost ensures good governance. If I can go to my boss and say, this is a problem, right, chances are big mistakes won't happen and governance challenges won't happen. But if I'm too scared or too shy, then chances are governance challenges will build up. Now, let me take a non-moral view. I want to cut corners. I don't care. Let's take that as a hypothetical example. Please don't hold it against me. And you think you can cut corners, and in 6 months or 12 months, you'll solve it, which means let's assume you've diverted money from the company. You've done something. Okay. The fact of the matter is, these small problems or small-term issues become long-term issues. If you habitually cut corners, right, sometimes you will solve them in 6 months and nobody will notice. But every once in a while, those small mistakes that you make or the small lapses that you make consciously accumulate and they become a problem and they come to bite your ass. So I would encourage people that even if you don't have a moral point of view, you must have a practical point of view and never do all this. Now, I'll just give you one statistic. Roger Federer was interviewed some time ago, and he said he won. He played 1,500 odd singles matches. He won 80% of those matches. And then they calculated how many points that he won. He won only 45% of the points, but he won 80% of the matches. Okay? So in life, in business, if you look at our not day-to-day decisions, but unique decisions, every game that Federer is playing is a unique game. So if you look at the unique decisions that we make, chances are our hit ratio is below 45%, our success ratio. So we've got to be able to improve that, and we've got to have the confidence that we'll succeed in spite of those mistakes.
I was talking to, I think, Mr. Godrej or Dr. Poonawalla once, and he said a very beautiful quote. He said, what I do is whenever I get an opportunity to test my value systems, I test it. So, and that's how we build a culture of the long term.
One more thing I want to say, you know, there was an ad, I think, of Patek Philippe watches, which says, you merely don't own a Patek Philippe, you hold it in trust for future generations. If you have that mindset, chances are your governance will be better because you're holding it for future generations. You polish you keep your watch clean, you keep it safe, so you keep your company safe.
The next quote is, the capital is not enough, families must adapt to compete. From your vantage point, what are the family enterprises doing right today that makes them attractive investment partners? Do you still see gaps?
See, if you spoke to Warburg Pincus or Blackstone or any of the private equity types, they would tell you they've made more money backing family businesses than anything else. Also, the universe of family businesses is very large. I was looking at some data, and I can't remember, one of the sell-side broking firms had this data. which divided companies into 10 deciles by profit, highest decile, second decile. And the fastest profit growth was happening in the second decile companies. The first decile companies were getting lethargic, the top decile. The third decile, fourth decile onwards, they were suffering from consolidation pressures. So the second decile had the best of all worlds. As a private equity investor, that's the sweet spot. You're gaining profit share, you're growing fast, and so on. So that's why family businesses are very, very attractive, because they are niche leaders often, they have strong managements, they have strong cultures, there's a lot of skin in the game, and therefore they are attractive. Anand Mahindra many years ago said, the future of business, families, and conglomerates is to look and feel like a private equity shop, like a Blackstone. And they will improve culture, they will have diversity, just like a private equity shop does. And therefore, I think family businesses are very, very attractive for investors.
So the last question, again, the last quote, because sometimes the boldest way to honor a legacy is to build your own. With so many next-gen leaders now starting independent funds or ventures, what advice would you give them on staying connected to the legacy while still building something distinctively on their own?
The first thing I would say is you have to come out of your comfort zone. So if you study organizational dynamics, there are 4 stages. There's a comfort zone, then there's the fear zone, then there's a learning zone, then there's a growth zone. And it's a long process.
When did you get out of your fear zone, or when did you get out of the comfort?
I think mid-90s.
Okay. That's how many years after you joined the business?
5-7 years.
Okay.
So I think you have to come out of your comfort zone, traverse the path, and go to the growth zone. I'll give you a personal example. Many years ago, I was in Davos, and there was a snowstorm, cars couldn't come, et cetera, and I was walking on the street, and I saw Mr. Mukesh Ambani walking on the street with no overcoat, just in his blazer, and he was rushing to a meeting. So I asked him what happened, and he said, we were in a car, and there was a traffic jam because of some snow problem. So we went to the nearby railway station, took a train. I forgot my overcoat in my car. So I'm walking from the train station to my meeting. Okay, so that's the drive. This was 5 years ago, I think. That's the drive, that's the hunger, that's the spirit and the purpose. When we were in business school, we did an exercise called the desert survival exercise. And they said, you're stuck in a desert, and the teams of 5 or 7 or 10 people, which team will do the best? So teams gave up with their answers, I will do this, I will do that. Teams typically that listen to everybody in the team. Experts said those are the most likely to survive by looking at what does it actually take. So nobody was an expert in the teams, but if you had diversity of thought, so you've got to cultivate diversity of thought. And one of the sayings I have on my wall in my office, I have quotes in my office wall, it says you've got to balance the discipline that is needed for survival with the chaos that is needed for progress. So if you have too much discipline, you'll survive, you may not prosper. But if you have too much chaos, you may succeed, but you may blow up. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalmia. It was lovely to have you speak. It was complete silence when you spoke. Thank you. Big round of applause, please. Thanks.
Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us.